Welcome, everybody, and welcome to the Livelong podcast, where your health is your power. Today, our guest is Dr. Mary Claire Haver. She's an OB-GYN, a menopause specialist, an author of the best-selling book, The New Menopause, and an upcoming book, The New Perimenopause. She helps millions of women understand this stage with science and with clarity. Welcome, Dr. Haver.
Thanks for having me.
For decades, menopause was barely discussed in medicine, and even though half the population goes through it. And today, women are really demanding answers about hormones, brain health, metabolism, longevity. How are you helping them?
I'm just trying to provide as much education and resources as I can. I can't be everyone's physician. I can barely manage the clinic I have, with a wait list of months and months and months. So I look at it as, you know, I'm the big sister of menopause, the information your mother never told you, like this is my job as I see it is to just inform everyone as much as possible. There's almost no downside to learning about your own body.
Um,
So,
what are the most surprising things that you've learned about
oh
menopause
God.
that
Yeah.
science has sort of hidden from us because we A doesn't don't have the data, and B, doctors haven't been educated?
Right. So really that there are estrogen receptors, the whole body effect of menopause, and the day I saw the paper where they had mapped out the G coupled estrogen receptors throughout the female human body, I just stood there and stared at it for an hour. Like, wait, like I knew they were in the breast, I knew they were in the uterus, I knew the ovaries, I knew in the genital urinary tissues, and I knew bone because of osteoporosis, but I didn't know the endothelium, where how plaques are made. I didn't know muscle and bone and tendon and all the areas of the brain. I mean, it was like a light bulb went off. And then I just started digging and it's the information is there. These studies have been done. They were just buried in academic journals. And no, not the American College of OB-GYN, not the Menopause Society. Everyone was so focused on hot flashes, osteoporosis, and genital urinary, all important stuff. But like, and then terrified of hormone therapy because of the misrepresentation of the Women's Health Initiative study. It just set us back like 25 years.
So that's so interesting when you talk about estrogen receptors being throughout the body.
Mhm.
Women experience a lot of symptoms, and because of this receptors that you weren't aware of that are throughout the body. What are some of the symptoms that may actually be related to perimenopause and menopause, but aren't necessarily connected to traditional parts of our bodies?
Right. So I think, perimenopause usually kicks off for most women with this feeling of, I just don't feel like myself. Okay. Perimenopause, this whole thing begins in the brain. The brain is what starts glitching first. So that comes out as mental health changes. We see ADHD type symptoms, or, maybe your ADHD was well managed or masked, and now we've unmasked it. We see anxiety, depression, rage. We see loss of resilience. We see sleep disruptions quite often, like someone who is a great sleeper suddenly has lost the ability to fall asleep or stay asleep. So, really, when we think of the brain symptoms, I start there. How's your mental health? How's your brain fog? How are you sleeping? Okay. Now, the last things that happen are the classic symptoms, the cycle disruptions, the hot flashes. That means you're getting close to the end, right? And you're transitioning into full menopause. In the middle, so if we just go organ system by organ system, palpitations in the heart, okay, very common. Vertigo. I just read a paper this morning, I'm going to make a TikTok about it, on hearing loss and menopause, how we have the estrogen receptor, the cochlea, in the inner ear has estrogen receptors. And I was like, oh my God, like every time I turn around, someone else is publishing. There are, okay, tinnitus, so ringing in the ear, vertigo, itchy ears, so that's our ears, Asthma changes, some better, some worse. We see gut changes, the gut microbiome changes, how we digest, how we absorb, how we recirculate estrogen dramatically changes. The musculoskeletal system, joint pain, what we used to think was fibromyalgia is probably just menopause related. It just goes on and on and on. Of course, the genital urinary symptoms, so dry vagina, loss of mucus, loss of elasticity, loss of the architecture of the vulva, all of that, recurrent UTIs. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's
Wow.
easier for me to say, just list a bunch of symptoms and I'll tell you which ones we know.
Well, where
Like,
aren't there estrogen receptors if there are so many symptoms everywhere? It makes me want to ask. You don't have to
oh,
answer.
our liver, so how we make cholesterol, LDL spikes, our insulin resistance increases. And the biggest one, the thing that brought me to the menopause table, really out of vanity, and I'm just going to be honest, was the body composition changes. I could not shake my abdomen. I mean, like could shake it. That was the problem. I couldn't get rid of it. This new belly that had blocked, and I'd had thin privilege most of my life. So that is where I really started with the research, because calories in, calories out was not working for me.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that that gut that start to develop in your perimenopause and menopause years is hormonal. It's not
Yeah.
because you're eating too
A
much.
large part of it, a large part of it. Yeah, our how we gain and lose weight is, yes, calories are important, but it's also, that's not all, right? We're not a closed system. We're not a machine. When I see the personal trainers out there screaming about you're just lazy and you're not working hard enough, they're not taking into account these massive hormonal shifts, inflammation, like all these factors that play into how our body composition shakes out as we age.
So let's talk about hormone replacement therapy because that seems to be the topic of the hour,
Mhm.
and everybody's talking about it lately. Is it a band-aid? Does it fix it all?
Yeah, no. So it is a tool in your toolkit. Some women may feel like it's miraculous, totally change their life, etc. But so say you are a person who eats a standard American diet or the Western diet, who is mostly sedentary. Okay. It is unlikely that long-term hormone therapy is going to change the trajectory of your health span, right? A little bit, but unless you make all of the toolkit changes, your nutrition, your exercise, your stress reduction, your community, your using your brain on a continuous basis, unless you're doing all those things, long-term hormone therapy is likely not going to seriously impact the quality of the years that you live.
So we don't have any data really on women, real deep data yet. So what else is there?
I'm not sure what your question is.
I mean, we don't. I have learned. Jennifer Garrison, a
Yeah.
neuroscientist at the Buck Institute.
Yeah,
Her
I
big
love
thing is
her.
talking about
She's
the fact that there's
amazing.
just not data on women's
Mhm.
bodies. So
Right. So when we have that longevity conversation, right? And we look at, all these things are being touted by the bro scientist and, the bromance happening in the longevity space. None of those studies were done in women, and most of that data is animal based, right? Or preclinical. And so the best we can do where the data is we look at women who live long, healthy lives, who don't have dementia, who don't have sarcopenia, who don't have osteoporosis, who don't fracture, who, live with minimal loss of independence to the end, right? They kind of die like a man. Then we can go backwards and look at their habits and say, okay, we know that for her. And really, the strongest data right now is using your brain and community and like finding joy. So, if you've read the book Joy Span, which is, oh my God, Carrie Burnite, when you talk to the gerontologists and the geriatricians, they're very, very clear on the cold plunges and the peptide stacks and all these things that are being touted are literally worthless, especially if you're a woman. That we know what the basics are. And it is going to be strong muscles, strong bones, strong heart, strong brain.
we should all take a page out of Alyssa Liu's, the Olympic skating champions, performance, which was the most joyful performance I've ever
Ah,
seen. She was an inspiration for all women in terms of letting go of expectations and promoting just living with joy.
I agree. And that model is going to, it's not, doesn't mean bad things aren't going to happen, that you're never going to get sick or have some unexpected thing, but it's learning to cultivate. And this is a skill. I just thought that was a personality thing. Like some people are just happier. But Dr. Burnight's research is really clear that these are skills that you can learn. She talks about her own mother, who really kind of had a dramatic turnaround in her 70s on how her outlook on life. And she's 96 and still living independently.
Amazing. My girlfriend and I always say to each other when we've had a bad day, go to the positive, go to the positive,
Mhm.
because that's where you're going to find the joy.
I'm
Okay.
usually like, go to bed and then wake up in the morning and do your gratitude. I do my gratitude in the morning when I wake up. So I'm like, just put this to bed and it's all going to be better tomorrow. And I'm almost never wrong.
Well, I love that. Whatever works for you. So where does hormone therapy make sense and where doesn't it make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. So a tool in the toolkit. Definitely if you're having classical, the classic hot flash, the vasomotor symptoms, you know, that's the gold standard of therapy is hormone replacement therapy. We know that if we stop your hot flashes, a lot of other risks are going to decline, like cardiovascular disease and probably dementia if you start early enough, especially if you're high risk. Okay, that's a really specific subset. What we've learned, so in the new perimenopause, I was just exploding with the data because there's never been a large scale like comprehensive trial on the treatment of perimenopause. We just ignored it. Like you can't talk about hormone therapy until you're postmenopausal. Well, this is a 17-year, 10-year symptomatic time span. So what we know now is that brain fog responds very positively to hormone therapy in perimenopause, as does mental health. And data out of Australia clearly said they looked at the traditional treatment of antidepressants like an SSRI, okay, like Prozac or something like that, and compared it to menopause hormone therapy given in perimenopause, and the mood symptoms improved greater than on an SSRI.
Wow, that's really interesting to know. So there are some people that can't take hormone therapy because of
Hmm.
cancer or because of blood clots. And so
Hmm.
what do you suggest then?
Actually, so blood clots, it's a nuanced discussion. You absolutely can do vaginal, transdermal. You just need to avoid oral estrogen. You can do everything else. So that is a
Such an
misnomer.
important piece of information to know. And I've
Yeah.
heard, and this might be a controversial question, but that there are early studies about even using it with women that have had breast cancer, certain kinds of
Yeah.
breast cancer.
So, I mean, it is not my job to tell a woman what she can and can't do. Okay. A physician's job is to lay out the risks and benefits and let her decide for herself. We don't do this to men and say, you can't have testosterone replacement therapy if you've had blah, blah, blah. Like if so, it's an educated decision. It is based on her needs, her wants. And for women specifically, we have taken out her desires, her culture, her and we are just like being paternalistic and telling her what she can and can't do. And that has got to stop. So, for breast cancer, there's some really exciting studies. For example, for stage, very low stage or stage 0, which is DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, using Duave, which is a combination of Premarin plus beta-doxyphene, which is a serum that binds and blocks the estrogen receptors and downregulates them in the breast and uterine tissue only. So you get the estrogen that gets to go to the brain, to your bones, to the liver and work its magic. But then in the tissues that are at risk, it's blocked and downregulated. And those studies are looking very positive. So
That's
there is hope
fascinating.
on the horizon. Menopause.org is a great resource for everyone. If you have cancer, menopause and cancer, incredible database, incredible resources for cancer survivors. Dr. Corinne Men is probably the world's best advocate for women after cancer. She's a breast cancer survivor of 27 years, was diagnosed 23, 24 now. She was diagnosed at 27 in her residency. And her OB-GYN residency, it talks about how she was gaslit. Her symptoms were not managed. She was absolutely miserable, and how she's just become an advocate for women having this incredible suffering as cancer survivors.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the statistic is like 2 or 5% of women now are on hormone replacement therapy.
So there was a study published last year at the Menopause Society, and we can only track FDA prescriptions. So like something you go pick up at Walgreens, we can't track the compounding. So that was at 4% of women eligible were on menopause hormone therapy.
Wait, so do you think
And
more women are actually eligible?
so, oh, Probably 95, 96% of
Okay,
women are
so
eligible.
let's take that, the fact that
Yeah.
95% of women are eligible.
Yeah, like
95%.
when I see women in the like, academicians saying we're overdiagnosing, we're overtreating, I'm like 4%. Like, how is that
Okay,
possibly?
so let's clear up some of the myths right now
Okay.
about hormone replacement therapy. What are the myths?
The myths are that it's inherently dangerous, that, giving your body back something that it made very safely for 30 years is somehow going to harm you. That all HRT is the same. It's not. Dose matters, duration of treatment matters. The how you put it in your body matters. Like we were talking about oral versus non-oral. That formulation matters. What happened with the FDA with the black box warning is they lumped every form of estrogen together and said it's dangerous when that's absolutely not the truth. There's a big difference between ethinyl estradiol, plain estradiol, Premarin, synthetic versus, the naturally occurring sources. So, just making these broad generalizations so you don't have to deal with it and it's just easier to say no is over. That is gone. We're not doing that anymore.
Well, and you've built an enormous social media following, talking about menopause and perimenopause. And why do you think this conversation is finally breaking open? I mean, is it a chicken or the egg thing? It's not because they just took the black box label off.
No, no, no. This was
It
going on
happened way before
years
that.
before that. I think it's Gen Xers who are saying, I'm not gonna
Woo,
fucking
go
do
Gen X.
this. Like I think it's us saying, looking at their mothers and their grandmothers and saying no thank you to how that trajectory that they're on, and like, what can I do? I'm not going to suffer. I deserve better than this. Standing up for themselves. I just love this generation. I'm part of it,
Me
so.
too. Me
But
too.
I just think we are like not putting up with this shit. You know what? I pay my bills, I pay my taxes, I own my home. Like, I deserve everything that a man can get out of medicine. I deserve it. And if I have to go get it on my own, I will.
It's true, and I wonder, how many Gen Xers. I'm sure that there are all ages in our audience today, and from millennials to Gen Z. I guess that's an interesting question. Is so many Gen Xers saw their moms not being prescribed menopause. My mom didn't take therapy, but what would you then say the main message is now for the younger generations?
I think they need to, first of all, we've had generations of women forever getting absolutely blindsided by perimenopause. No one discussed it. They didn't know what was happening. They thought they were going crazy. When you look at women quitting their jobs, the divorce rate, the doubling of SSRIs, of antidepressants across the menopause transition. Like, we don't men don't do that. We don't double their prescription rate over a certain time period. So it is we're just not going to allow them to go through this uneducated. We can't stop the process. 100% of us go through it if we're lucky to live long enough, right? But just educating a woman about her own body, what's coming, what you can do about it, what lifestyle things we know work, how you can set yourself up for success for the best 30 years of your life.
You
You
know,
know,
it reminds me a lot of the fertility conversation. And I want to talk a little bit about
Mhm.
fertility because, 10 years ago, I wrote a book called In Her Own Sweet Time, which was about women delaying motherhood. Where
Right.
women, the New York Times just published a story that more women are having
Over
children
the age of
in their 40s
40.
now than
Mhm.
they are in their 20s, which
Mhm.
means that many women are
Are
getting pregnant during perimenopause.
Mhm.
Let's talk
They are
about
walking right out of postpartum into perimenopause. Like, it never ends, right? Because postpartum is a
me. I had a
naturally
baby at 42.
low, yeah, naturally low estrogenic state. So, and so many other things are happening. We have tremendous bone loss in pregnancy and but we bounce back if we're young enough. You get that right back as soon as you stop nursing and your estrogen levels come back up. Perimenopausal women having babies never get that grace period. So I'm like, if you have a baby in your 40s, you need a bone density scan, like early, like stay on top of this. Don't be surprised at 55, 65 with a fracture.
And then are there also, other ways, that we should look at sort of the fertility perimenopause in terms of ensuring our health, and particularly knowing that, women who are watching that are in their 30s, in their, think you haven't really thought about getting pregnant yet in their
Mhm.
20s, how we should protect our long-term health in that way.
Yeah, your period is a vital sign. So if you're not having regular monthly periods or something is changing and you don't have that predictable ebb and flow, something's going on. You know, if you have PMS, your risk of having mental health changes in perimenopause is going to be increased. Like there are signs that we know, and if you, most women who find out that they're perimenopausal, like how do we make the diagnosis? Because they can't get pregnant right away. They're struggling to get pregnant and they find out they're in perimenopause.
Right.
So they get their AMH level checked or whatever. It's just really, really, really incredible.
Well, I'm super excited about your new book about perimenopause because as menopause has sort of not gotten the attention it needs, even more perimenopause is needing
I
a lot
feel like
of attention now.
perimenopause is kind of where menopause was 5 years ago. Like it's, we're serving it up. People are weighing in. We're getting more research. We are getting more research.
Yeah.
So, but it's mostly out of the US.
Well, Dr. Haver, you have certainly schooled me today, and I'm sure you've schooled a lot of women. I now understand why you have such a big social media following. You have a great personality, and I really appreciate you joining the Livelong Circle today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, see you at the conference.
Okay.
Okay, bye.